mom found out, about George Hodel, and she found out that he was one of the suspects in the murder of Elizabeth Short, who was famously known as the Black Dahlia.
You have to know that, what is going on in your family or the generational trauma that has happened in your family does not define who you are.
In the darkness, there is always light. You always have to look for the light.
Are you feeling stuck, lost, tired, or uninspired? We've all been there, including myself. I'm Coach Des, mindset motivator and lifestyle entrepreneur. I'm here to tell you that the best, unapologetic, and limitless version of yourself is yet to come. The Born Unbreakable podcast is here to inspire just that. With motivating guests from all different walks of life and around the world, their stories will empower you to unlock abundance and your unbreakable spirit. Do you need accountability? Reach out to me for a free consultation of how I can support you in reaching your maximum potential. Hey everyone, it is Coach Des here, host of the Born Unbreakable podcast, and I am launching Born a Boss Babe 90-day transformational program starting in August. And I'm looking for 18 to 24-year-old young, confident women who are ready to step up and excel in life. What is the biggest difference of somebody like an Oprah or a LeBron James? It's having that mentorship and coaching. So if you're ready to supercharge your life, hit me up, des@bornunbreakable.com for more details. Welcome to the Born Unbreakable podcast. I was just telling my guests that I could not sleep last night. I could not sleep because this is literally an episode that I have been waiting to have, and I was thinking about it all night long, and here I am. And I'm never nervous on my show, but I just had all these butterflies because the two women that I have today are some of the most remarkable human beings that I've had the pleasure to listen to and learn about. And the fact that they're here today is truly a blessing for me. So if you are a true crime junkie like myself, like seriously, if I'm not listening to self-help, I'm probably listening to Dateline, their podcast, and every other major crime podcast that there is, then you're in for a real treat. I have Rasha Pecoraro and Yvette Gentile, who are the co-hosts of the wildly, insanely popular, like 18,000 almost reviews popular podcast called Root of Evil. And so that is your first homework assignment. If you're coming here today and you haven't listened yet, that is the first thing you need to make sure that you do. And they're also have a podcast that I'm currently listening to right now called Facing Evil. So I'll let them talk about that. But they have a very fascinating family history, which we'll get into a little bit. That's, the whole genesis of one of the reasons why I wanted them on the show. And they have a fascinating story, which they tell about their mother, Fauna Hodel. And there's a show called I Am the Night, which you actually can watch right now on Hulu, which I've watched end to end. You can tell I'm obsessed with your story. And it's incredible. It really is. I mean, there's a reason why you ladies have, once you told your family story, went on Dr. Oz and Dr. Phil and the Today Show and all this stuff, because it really is a different way of true crime podcasting, because there's like this autobiographical kind of vibe to it, because it's about your family. And that's such a unique thing in this space of true crime, which honestly is the most popular genre, that there is in podcasting. And so just for context, Yvette lives in San Francisco. My gosh, I was raised there. Amazing.
That's
And
amazing.
Portland, which I've worked in, is where Rasha is. And we share something really, really special, which is we have roots in Hawaii. If anybody's watching the episode, you can see I brought my, ohana, aloha vibes today. So I'm all about that. And I know that one of the reasons I was attracted to these women is because of your aloha spirit. So there's probably about 50 other things I can say that is quite impressive, but then we would never get to the episode. Welcome to the Born Unbreakable podcast, ladies.
Oh my gosh, Des, like you could be our PR person
I
as
know.
well. Oh my goodness. That was amazing.
I was
That
like,
was amazing.
should I bring a sign and hold it up, or would that be weird?
Not weird at
That was
all.
that's a little weird. But yeah, I mean, I was so touched by your story. Every friend that I have that's a crime podcast listener has listened to your story, and so I think we have to start there. The Hodel family history is 70 years of darkness, and starting with your great grandfather George Hodel, and the Black Dahlia. So why don't one of you kind of take us into your family history? And I'd also love to hear how you started to uncover it. Obviously, that came from your mom, Fauna. So tell us a little bit about the history, and how did you start to learn about it?
Wow. Well, I'll start at the beginning a little bit, and it's really funny because you said that I live in San Francisco, and it just so happens my mom was born at the unwed mother's house on Masonic. I did not know that when I moved in with my husband. So when we talk about like coincidences and symbol and signs, I don't that's a huge sign. So she was born, here in San Francisco, and she was given away at birth to a black family who was Jimmy Lee and Homer Faison. He was a shoe shine man, she was a maid. They raised her in Reno, Nevada, and obviously she was given away under mysterious circumstances because on her birth certificate, like we talk about all the time, it said that her father was Negro and her mother was Caucasian. So back in the 50s, that's why she was given away to a black family. So we thought. And so she was raised in Reno, Nevada, but her black grandmother always said, never change your name. You come from money, don't ever change your name. And so being told this from the time she was very little, she kind of knew that there was something bigger that she had to find out. And it was the time, like she was 8 years old, she really started searching, for her real family. And fast forward, in the early 70s, she finally gets in touch with Tamar, who's in Hawaii. I'm 6 years old. We fly to Hawaii, meet her mother for the first time, which I described that all on Root of Evil, which was like, something out of the Partridge Family. It was truly like that. And when she, is having these intimate conversations with her mother, Tamar then tells her that she's not black. So you can imagine, being raised by a black family, dealing with racism on both ends of the spectrum, but truly, in your soul, believing that you were black. Why would somebody lie and say that your father was Negro? So when she's given this information, it completely and utterly destroyed her identity. And then Tamar goes on to tell her about her grandfather, George Hodel, and that there was incest in the family. So that's when it all began. Obviously I was very young, so I didn't understand all of that until years later when we moved to Hawaii and I'm in my teens, but I'll let Rasha jump in. But it's a wild and crazy story. And the fact that my mom, didn't break. She was born unbreakable.
Mm-hmm.
That's for certain. And that's,
Mhm.
that's where we get that strength is, from our mother. So that
No
was the
doubt.
beginning.
That was the very beginning. And also on that trip, I wasn't born yet. I'm the baby sister. But on that trip, mom found out, about George Hodel, and she found out that he was one of the suspects in the murder of Elizabeth Short, who was famously known as the Black Dahlia. And she also found out about, it was called a morals trial at the time, but it was an incest trial, right? Quote unquote
Yes.
morals trial, in between George Hodel and our biological grandmother, Tamar Hodel. And not only was her identity completely shattered, and she found out, oh, I also might be possibly the product of incest, and he's accused of killing this woman. And she found out he was accused of killing other people as well. And that didn't scare mom away,
No.
surprisingly. But like Yvette said, Yvette was little. mom had Yvette when, she had just, she was 15, just turned she had her a week after she turned 16. But she came back multiple times to get to know her biological mother. And on one of those trips, she got pregnant with me. And it was the first white man she'd ever slept with. Hence, I know this is on YouTube and going to be on the podcast. But yes, I am blonde hair, blue eyed. But mom made the conscious decision to raise Yvette and I in Hawaii because she knew, she's like, if I'm going to have a daughter that's going to come out most likely looking haole or looking white, and my, biracial, beautiful daughter, Yvette, if I'm going to raise these two girls, I don't want them to go through what I went through. So she consciously decided, and she fell in love with Hawaii and the aloha spirit. So I came along in 1978. And so mom raised us, and I can't even begin to tell you, Des, how amazing our mom was. I mean, I know you know all about our family. I'm sure you saw her light shining through the darkness of her story, because that's who our mother was. But she raised us with such pure aloha and love, despite the darkness that she came from. And she never hid it from us. From a very young age, Yvette and I, we knew the stories. We didn't know the in-depthness and how dark it really truly was until we were a little older. But we knew about George Hodel. We knew about the Black Dahlia. We knew about all of the things. And it didn't stop her from loving us unconditionally. And she was just this amazing human being. And like Yvette said, born unbreakable. And her whole life, like Yvette said, when she was 8 years old, she knew she had to tell her story. So she wrote about it in the 80s. She got a writer to self-publish a book. And it was called One Day She'll Darken. And then she was on this path. She even had a movie that has never been released called Pretty Hattie's Baby that they filmed in 1991, starring Alfre Woodard, Charles S. Dutton, Jill Clayburgh, Allison Elliott,
Tess
Harper, who is now passed, and Jill Clayburgh has now as well. But it was incredible. But our mom believes that George Hodel had that movie stopped. We don't have any proof of that, but that was her feeling her whole life. So she was given this amazing gift to bring her story to the world, and then it was taken away. So she kept going and kept going and kept going. And she finally met our beloved Ohana, Patty Jenkins. And she met her in 2010. And I'll let Yvette take the rest of that. And sorry, it's going to be most of your show, Des, is us explaining it all.
This is the heart of it. You have such a rich story, and the reason people come to this podcast is to understand and make connections so they can take that into their own life and say, perspective. And if there's any people that can provide perspective about overcoming and persevering, it's both of you. So I love hearing this from you both, the story and how it's unfolded. So 2010.
Right. So 2010, and I just have to say that, just to piggyback off of what Rasha said a little bit, our mother was she was very conscious of all of the decisions that she was making to continue to do better and be better because of her circumstances. So fast forward 2010, she meets Miss Patty Jenkins, and it's so funny because I had been with my mom in LA, going to all these meetings, meeting all these different people, Kevin Costner, Oprah Winfrey, all these meetings. She pounded the pavement, in LA trying to get this story done. So when she finally met Patty, she knew, and my mom would always call and she'd be like, "This is the one." She'd be like,
every time,
"This is the one," every time. And Rasha and I would be like,
"Okay, mom."
I mean, we always believed, but you just never know, right? And so she's like, "This Patty Jenkins is the one." So Patty wrote mom a check for $100, basically to, I forget what the exact term is, but option to hold, mom for a year. But Patty said, "Fauna, there's no guarantee that I can do this in a year, because she was just getting ready to do Wonder Woman. So you can imagine that's a huge project. Mom was like, no, I'm going to wait. So she kept getting another check year after year for $100 option, which she never cashed.
She never cashed.
By the way, we still have those checks. She
Mhm.
never cashed them. And finally, it came to fruition. It came to fruition. And Patty said, Chris Pine, I told Chris Pine the story when we were on Wonder Woman, and Chris Pine is like, what are you waiting for? You need to do this story.
Hi.
Yeah.
Hello.
He was so intense, by the way.
And he's beautiful.
I watched
He's amazing.
every episode in the series, and I was like, I can't imagine anyone else playing him.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
And he never did the same take twice. We were there for 90% of it, and he's one of the most incredible actors I have ever seen work in my life.
Ever. So talented.
When he was in the hospital, the morgue, and he went in there and he got all beat up when he came, I was like, oh my gosh, what was it like to go in there? Oh,
and that's
my gosh.
Rocky Faulkner did all of the makeup, which was incredible. Oh my God.
He just got his ass kicked.
I know.
Whoa.
I know.
So good.
So Chris was like, Patty, you have to do this. Then Sam Sheridan came on board, which is Patty's husband, and he wrote, the screenplay basically with Chris's character in mind. And Mom, this is during the time that our mom had, breast cancer. So she knew that this was happening, and
she read the pilot and worked with Sam.
And worked with Sam, and it was like, if you were to see my mom, like, we knew what she was going through, but she was so strong, Des, and so fierce that you would have never known she was sick. She was like, I'm going to be here till I'm 99. Like, I have work to do. Yeah. And
it was 2 years after her passing that her story was finally released.
Actually. Well, yes, you're right, Des.
I mean,
2019.
Yeah, sorry, but we were on set
like
6 weeks after we lost Mom to breast cancer. So
that process started.
Oh yeah,
really close
because Chris had already been cast. Carl Franklin had been brought on as another director, because Patty only directed the first 2 episodes because she had to go do Wonder Woman 1984. And then she eventually brought in directors, like I said, Carl Franklin and Vic Mahoney. But Mom knew about Carl and about Chris. And India Eisley, who plays our mom, was cast about 10 days after Mom died. And she embodied and still embodies our mom's spirit every day. Like, she is such a beautiful, shining light. But Mom knew it was coming. But yeah, Patty and Chris and India and Golden Brooks, and Sam, everyone, they had us on set. And we were only supposed to come for 1 week, and we were there for the majority of filming. And it was, what was it, Yvette? Surreal?
It was surreal. It was so many different emotions, Des, because like we said, our mother had started this project since she was 8. Like, she had the vision and the mission, to do this. So it was hard because, there was a part of us that was so devastated from losing our mom, and the fact that this is her story, this is her dream, and she's not here sitting in her chair was really hard. But at the same time, it was, we were still grieving, and a part of that was helping us with our grieving, because it was bringing her back to life. And
in a different way, because think about the legacy.
Yes.
Exactly.
Right? Because when you have this kind, and this is what I think is so important for anybody that's listening, is we carry with us sometimes this burden of the past, of this darkness, and somehow you might tell yourself, well, this must be what I'm destined for, because this is where I came from. And your mom is an example of turning the tide.
Yes.
She's an example of taking the other route and just being so fearless her whole life, changing generations of, all the
Yep.
shit. I mean,
Yep.
for anybody, who's listened understands what we're talking about here, but that's a huge shift to make, to change a legacy, because when you hear the name Hodel, you can decide what you associate with that.
Yeah.
And she's changed that. Totally different. What did it mean to you both to do Root of Evil? What did that conversation sound like between the two of you? They go, hey, let's take this a step further and just, dig right in and share all
Well,
of this.
first of all, it was not our idea.
Yeah. It's not our
We
idea.
were approached, I believe we were actually on set for reshoots in 2018. So you are correct. So we filmed the majority of season 1 of I Am the Night through, it was all of the end of 2017 into the beginning of 2018. We shot in Honolulu, Hawaii, and Kualoa Ranch, Makaha side in like March.
Oh, I love that. I rode horses there.
Well, we shot there.
It's so
Jurassic
beautiful.
World is not the only ones who filmed there.
Hello.
But
Don't get it
I
twisted.
know. That was like
people.
the spring of 2018. But then we had reshoots that summer, a handful of reshoots. And Sam Sheridan approached Yvette and I and was like, yeah, so, TNT really wants to do this companion podcast since I'm the Night is just inspired by your mom's life. And we know how crazy the truth is. We want you to do a podcast, like just to go with the show. No big deal. It's fine. Like, and Yvette and I are like, what's a podcast?
But first we were like,
what do you need for that? Do you have to buy things? You just turn on your computer? Is there like an app for that? What do you do?
But at first we were like, straight away, because we love Patty and Sam, and we were like, of course, sure, we'll do it. And then we were like, what's a podcast?
Yeah. But mom knew, like mom, she had been recording herself and interviewing other people on cassette tape for years and years and years. So she left us with she left us with so much, not just audio, but she didn't get rid of anything. Like we have everything she ever left us in a storage unit that, we all as a family have paid for 20 plus years, no matter where in the world we've been living. And so it was TNT brought in powerhouse podcasters from Cadence 13. They brought in Zach Levitt, who is an Emmy Award-winning filmmaker, documentarian, and this was his first big foray into podcasting. And he convinced our entire family to do it, and he chose Yvette and I to be the host. And honestly, the rest is history.
You are the chosen ones.
Yep, all because of Zach Levitt.
Mastermind. I like to call Zach our brother from another mother.
That's another beautiful human. Talk about born unbreakable. Like he's such a good soul.
Yeah, such an amazing guy. And we got the phone call from him, and we were like, I was in my car going somewhere. I don't know where you were, Rasha. And
I think I was home. I was here.
He started telling us, about, what he wanted to do, and just talking to him and listening to him, he saw us for who we were, and he just kind of like cradled us, which was so amazing. And I can't even begin to tell you like how amazing that experience was with Zach. But with that being said, when they came up with the title, we're like, we're not the root of evil. Like, what are you talking about?
You want us?
But we're Fauna
Hodel's
daughters.
Of evil? Yeah. But we get it. Zach explained.
Yes, he explained it, so.
We're the purple flower coming out. The root of evil is George, but our mom, like you said, she broke that generational trauma cycle. Our mom didn't even raise her voice to us ever. You know what I mean? Like she was that.
Well, to you, she did.
I don't remember that. Apparently, I was a little bit of a kolohe or a troublemaker when I was a baby. I don't remember.
She never take out one slipper.
No, she never take out one slipper. But my sister, I was afraid of my sister, and she never ever had to do anything physical to me. I'm like, I'm never doing drugs. I'm never drinking because my sister Yvette will kick my okole into the ground. Yeah, I was afraid. I was like, oh no, Mom would have let me do anything. She was.
She was a
Oh
delicate
my
flower.
God. She was
Oh my
great.
God, she really was. But there were times when she was younger, like my mom would be like, "Rasha, don't do that." Rasha,
All
I
gently.
said, "Don't do that." Rasha, like she'd do it like 10 times, and then the last time she'd be like, "Rasha."
Yeah, see, I don't remember that. I blocked all that from my memory. I only have good
Yeah.
memories. But it was, for me, like, it was beautiful because, and I talk about it a little bit on Root of Evil. I'm talking about it a lot on Facing Evil. I had the dichotomy of being half time with mom and Yvette and half time with my dad. And my dad was verbally, physically, and emotionally abusive up into my 20s. So like I just like I think I blocked out anything bad. Not that mom, I mean literally, like she maybe raised her voice to me like once or twice, but like that was my safe space, was being with mom and Yvette. Because I had such evil on this other side, which I haven't talked to him since I told him I was a lesbian in 2009. So c'est la vie. But yeah, like our mom, she just raised us to see and know love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That one of my favorite moments that you talked about is when you came out and you told your mom
Yeah.
about being a lesbian, and she said something to you like, "Oh, why do you have to call? Why does it have to have a title?"
Right. Don't you just love people? No, mama. I'm never sleeping with a boy again.
I love
That's true.
specific people.
Yeah.
Specific ones.
Yeah.
But yes, I have like agape
Yeah.
love.
Right.
Oh my God, she loved
Right.
agape.
She loved agape. Like she lived in LA and went to agape all the time.
Oh my God, that's
Oh my
so
God.
funny. And Baha'i,
So
she did
she
everything.
understood that.
Yeah.
She was good. She was good friends actually with, I think it was Michael Beckman, one of the lead guys
Right,
from
right, right.
Agape. Yeah. Yeah.
She was always searching
Yeah.
for that spirituality and that
Yeah.
love. But
Again,
Yeah.
she made a conscious choice, to surround herself with great people that were very positive and, were always lifting and moving her up, and spiritually grounding herself and growing. Our mother was a big believer in God and, spirit and faith, because
Mhm.
she was raised in a Black community. She was raised in the church, so she was rooted in that. Even though as hard as it was, dealing with the racism, I always like to say mom was really rooted in love. So that played a big part of who she was, going forth into her adult years.
Mhm. What I love about both of you is so you do Root of Evil, which you were encouraged to do. So you were approached about it. But then came along Facing Evil, which I've been listening to and is amazing.
thank you.
So what led to that?
Gosh, after Root of Evil was such a huge success that we started getting, a lot of attention, but it wasn't the type of attention that we necessarily wanted, because we kept getting approached by different people to do different types of true crime podcasts, but in a very salacious way. And that,
Hmm.
that's not who we are. That's not who we are. We're Fauna Hodel's daughters, and Root of Evil was brought about because of I Am the Night and, Patty and Sam and then Zach Levitt. So for us to carry on our mother's legacy, we really had to, find people that saw us for who we were. And it just so happened we were at the iHeartRadio Podcast Awards, in January of 2020. And we were with Zach.
Gosh, right before the
Right before
pandemic.
we were on the red carpet, right
Yep.
before the world shut down.
right before it shut down.
You were like, "Oh, good thing we got to do
Yeah.
that."
Yeah.
And we were with Zach, and at the podcast awards, everybody is networking, but we were so like focused on Zach, and we're like, Zach, what can we do next? But Zach is like, he's so precise in the things that he wants to do, and we're so like positive. It was like they were trying to figure it out, but it just wasn't happening. So we also met Donald and Payne, and I'll let Rasha jump in from there.
So it was actually on the red carpet. We were standing in line. So standing in front of us was Gabby Dunn and Mal Bloom, who are an amazing LGBTQ plus couple. And I was like chatting with them, and we like already became BFFs. And then behind us were Payne Lindsay, Donald Albright from Tenderfoot TV, both the co-founders of Tenderfoot TV, and Neil Strauss, the host of To Live and Die in LA. And Zach knew them because Zach had helped on To Live and Die in LA. And everyone in the true crime podcasting genre, they know each other. It doesn't matter who they work for or where they're from. And he introduced us on the red carpet. And Donald just locked in on us, and we just made this connection. And you could tell a few times that night he kept trying to come up to us, but we were like, again, we had just lost because we were nominated for Best True Crime Podcast. I think we lost to Man in the Window. They equally wonderful. But so we're like just focusing on Zach, and Donald made his way, and he's just like, what you two ladies did with Root of Evil blew my mind. You're absolutely beautiful human beings. Didn't say anything. Like, he's just like, I just wanted you to know that, and then we connected on social media, and just a few months later, he's like, all right, who you signed with? What are you doing? Like, can we have a meeting? And he saw us for who we were. He's like, your sisters. I want to share that. Yes. The way in is through true crime because that's how people know you. But how do we do this in a different way? And like for Yvette and I, we have been given this amazing platform and gift, which started with our beautiful mom, Fauna Hodel. And she always wanted us to work together. She wanted us to write a book, which we are. And she wanted us to, if she would have known what a podcast was, she would have been like, do a podcast, but I'm telling you, like, she was just way ahead of her time. She was podcasting before she knew what podcasting was. And so Donald just saw that. He saw that we were Fauna Hodel's daughters, and we wanted to have conversations that weren't being had, right? So, and nothing against anyone who's in the true crime arena or who has been, but there's not really, at least, I know there's a little bit of queer representation in true crime, but there's not a whole lot of African-American representation. There's not a lot of lesbian representation. You know what I mean? Like, and we want to tell stories. We want to tell stories that aren't being told. Like, we want to talk about Tina Fontaine, who was an Indigenous young girl who was murdered in Canada. That happens every day. And it doesn't get talked about enough. Or, people of color or Black Lives Matter cases, or, we're talking about the big cases too, but we're doing true crime, but really it's society and culture. We're having conversations, and as sisters, we can have those open conversations, and we have Trevor Dorenas in, like you said, Des.
Right, and exactly. And
he's brilliant. I love him.
Yeah, we have an amazing
He is so, and his voice. Stop.
Right?
Right?
Out of town with his deep voice.
I know.
I'm just like, oh, what's he going to say next? That's exciting.
I always want to listen to what Trevor says.
Yeah, he's like Lester Holt.
Yes.
Every time I hear Lester Holt, on Dateline and everything, I'm like, ooh, Lester Holt, what's he talking about?
I love Lester.
It's like there's just voices like that where you're like, yeah, I dig this. But it's beautiful how you bring so much together. And I think that's the unique gift that you're bringing to podcasting and the true crime genre, because you are sisters. And you have that connection, and you're bringing forth such important things. And at the end of the day, we are living in society every day, and we're in an evolving country, in a global universe now. Everything is digital, and so people are seeking information. There's still people today who are discovering what a podcast is. So for as many thousands and thousands and thousands of podcasts that are out there, there's still people going, oh, what's this? Oh, it's free, and all this stuff. And so it's a platform that is providing people with a choice of where to go to get information. And you're really getting into this industry that's opening the door even further. For such important issues, and just bringing it together in such a special way. And I love how you bring the culture into it. Yes. That's such a special thing. I love how at the end of your episodes in Facing Evil, you do that imua, and you talk about moving forward, because when people think about true crime, it is dark, it is sad. There's the it's not all warm and fuzzies usually after you're listening to an episode, but when you give some some hope and some faith and some support, that changes, the way that people can look at a situation that isn't, so bright.
I
Yeah,
love
and I
that,
think
Des.
I think it's
Mm-hmm.
important for us to all have empathy and compassion, and I think we lack that in the world. So that is why we're trying to bring, I always like to say we're trying to bring heart to true crime,
Mm-hmm.
by bringing, the light into the darkness. It's so important.
Mm-hmm.
And that's who our mother was. She was this incredible light that, was the grew up in this, somewhat darkness, and then found out, about this other darkness, but she never let that define who she was. Somehow, some way, she kept moving forward. Not all people can do that,
Yeah.
But that's why that's why we're storytellers.
Right.
So we can give people that hope, to
Mm-hmm.
move onward and upward somehow, some way, because as we know, there's not always going to be closure in a lot of these stories,
Right.
but they're going
Yeah.
to,
It's more making peace,
yes,
right? Making
exactly.
peace with a situation, with yourself, and having the ability to move on. So people, I'm sure one of the questions that anybody who's listening that's learned about you both is wondering is what's next? Because now they've discovered you and this gift of storytelling, and they're intrigued by both of you and what you're putting into the world. When you look at the next, 1 to 3 years, what's in store? What are you working on? What are you looking forward
That's a
to?
beautiful question, Des.
That's a
So
great question.
I can tell you for sure, because of our amazing team at Tenderfoot TV and iHeartRadio, we're bringing Facing Evil to you every week, every Thursday for at least 2 years. And so that we can say for sure.
For sure.
And we have an amazing literary and publishing agent, and Yvette and I have always wanted to write a book together, and multiple books. That's
Yes,
definitely
multiple
coming.
books.
And I know for me, and I know Yvette will answer in her own words, but I know that I believe that representation matters. And just by living my life out loud, the life that I live with my wife, our daughter, my beautiful sister, and our amazing team at Facing Evil, I think that I can make a positive difference in the world, which is what our mom always wanted to do. Like, even though she would tell everyone her life story, she wanted to know yours. She
Yeah.
wanted to know about everyone. And she, it's not politically correct to say, but she didn't see color because she had gone through so much. Like, of course, if she were here now, we'd explain, all the things, and we'd get her, up to PC and all that stuff. But her ultimate goal was to heal the world, as cheesy as that sounds. And
It's
I just want to do that in our little own way.
It's
absolutely.
interesting that you say that, it's something you can do. You are doing it, Rasha. Like, you've already changed the world with what you're doing, and you're just doing more of it. That's the thing that's so incredible. But Yvette, what were you going to add about what you're working on?
Rasha, said all the things that, we were working on, and, who's to say what's to come? I think Rasha and I are like, we are vessels for good,
Mm-hmm.
and I always like to say, it's so important just to do and be better. Each and every single one of us, we're all evolving as humans, and we're all constantly learning. And I think one of the things that I preach to my sister, I preach to all of my friends, is if we just take the time to listen to one another, we will have some common ground. And I just think it's so important in the world that we live in today.
Fancy that. Can you imagine?
Right?
Right?
If everyone just did a little bit more, just a
Just
little
just a
bit,
Just be
little
a
bit.
little
Just
kind.
just a little
just a
bit.
little. That would change so much.
Change everything.
And so is CrimeCon in your future?
Yes, and that is a
Yes.
question for Tenderfoot and iHeart, but we
just putting it out
putting it-
there. Maybe this is like a public service
yes,
announcement, like a
will be
request
there.
from your
Yeah,
audience.
we hadn't released, or I think our trailer dropped on June 30th, so they thought it was too soon to send us to this year, but we will be at Podcast Movement, so in
Nice.
Dallas, Texas. So
Yes,
Texas.
There you go.
I don't know what us
Texas.
Hawaiians are gonna do there. Be like, what? What?
Right?
I don't wear
Yeah,
boots. I wear
Can we
slippers.
bring barbecue together, Hawaiian barbecue?
Yeah.
Like, have you ever had a malasada?
Oh,
Yeah,
dang.
like-
Worth every carb.
Every car. Or some
Or
lao
mostly
lao.
anybody?
Some lao lao.
Yeah,
That's
Right?
protein. It's beautiful.
yeah, it's amazing. Lomi salmon.
Mhm.
Oh,
So good.
take me home.
So yeah, I mean, I was telling Rasha and Yvette that I went to CrimeCon this year just as a super crime junkie fan. Obviously, I'm in a self-help
Right.
genre, but I'm obsessed with true crime, and it was so amazing. Like the first picture that I took with Josh Mankiewicz from Dateline.
Oh, were you fangirling?
Or like. Yeah. Oh gosh, yeah. And Chris Hansen, who hosts How to Catch a Predator.
I haven't.
I was like, you
listened to
catch
that.
those predators, Trish.
Oh my gosh.
Catch them
Catch
all.
'em.
Catch them. But it was so cool. Just all those just shows like The Thing About Pam, and
Right. Right.
and just to say, well, I love that's why I love you so much. Is I like the stories from families and them talking about what the experience was like of them overcoming, that kind of thing. So that's so awesome. One of the questions that I had for you is what would you tell somebody who has darkness and maybe has in their family, in their history, a darkness that is affecting them, it's impacting them, and maybe even feels like they're getting held back from it? What would you tell that person?
I think what we would definitely tell them is that you have to know that, what is going on in your family or the generational trauma that has happened in your family does not define who you are. And to try and make those conscious choices to surround yourself with the helpers, because that is one thing our mother did so very well, Des. She found the helpers in her story that helped to elevate her out of the darkness. So it's so important who you surround yourself with. So very important, because as we know, if you keep that evil, negative energy around you, that is going to weigh you down. That is going to hold you back. So you have to, let me just say it again and say it loud. You have to look for the helpers.
And I want to add on to that. I'm not plagiarizing here, but I am going to share a piece of advice that our beautiful Ohana member or family member, Patty Jenkins, actually just shared with us yesterday. And she said, in the darkness, there is always light. You always have to look for the light. And I've said that to many, many friends and family who have been in that darkness before. And sometimes I know, like I know I can be a lot for some people because I always come with a positivity. I'm always going to look at the glass half full. I'm always going to look for the light in the darkness because of what I've come through, what others around me have gone through, and because of our family history. Like our mom never let that define who we are or let it define us. So I always try to just lead with the light, and it's okay. Like you can be on a pile on the floor crying. You can sit in that darkness, but only for a little bit. Like get back up and stay. And
that's
keep moving onward and upward. Like
keep persevering. That's how our mother was. She never stayed in that. And mom had some hard times, But
Mm-hmm.
you would never know that.
Mm-mm.
The closest to her, her children, would know this, but she never wallowed in that. She
Mm-hmm.
always mustered up that courage and that perseverance to move onward and upward. And that's what grounds Rasha and I. That is
Imua,
the
Imua.
right?
imua. That is really what resides in our soul, because as we know, we cannot make everybody happy,
Mm-mm.
and nor should we try to. But
Mm-hmm.
what we can do is be kind, right? Most importantly, and treat others the way that you would want to be treated yourselves. And my mother, our mother, lived her life like that.
Incredible. Is there any self-limiting belief that you've had to overcome through your process of healing and your journey of growth?
Ooh. So,
That's deep.
Des, I'm gonna be honest with you. I was doing some homework and listening to Born Unbreakable, and I knew this question was coming, but I still didn't know the answer when I was like, "She's gonna ask that. I gotta be ready." I'm like, "Oh my god, I know." But and I'm gonna get a little vulnerable here, but because of everything that has happened in our family and our ohana and everything I've personally gone through, I have at times and at moments not felt like I was enough. And I know every single day, no matter what comes out of my mouth, whether I say something wrong or I hurt someone's feelings because it's never intentional, or if I'm not perfect, it's okay because there's still tomorrow. And if you lead with aloha and lead with kindness, and someone misconstrues that, or like if someone doesn't think I'm enough, I know that I am because I'm learning, I'm evolving.
Yeah.
And I've definitely had to overcome that, and I still do every day. You just, something will be said online and I'll never acknowledge it, but I'll be crying tears to my wife and my sister and been like, "Why are they being so mean?" And they brush it off. And then I'm like, "Okay, all right." But in those moments, that's definitely, it's hard, but I am enough, and we all
Mm-hmm.
are, as long as we have our heart in the right place. I never want to intentionally hurt or harm anyone or anything.
Absolutely. Oh, it's beautiful. What about you, Yvette?
Wow, that's such a deep question, Des. And I think for me, the hardest moment that I had in my life was when I lost my mom. Um, I'm a Leo, like we've talked about before. Leos
You
are
have the
night.
same birthday as my sister.
I
Aww.
We
know, I
discovered
know.
this. Yeah. Oh,
Leos are. My mom was a Leo, August 1st. Um, when I lost her, when we lost her, I was telling Patty this, like at our mom's celebration of life, after she passed, and I felt like I lost my identity, and I was always this strong, I could walk through fire, do anything. But the moment that love left me, I felt defeated. I yeah, I felt defeated, and it took me, going through therapy and getting help, and talking to my sister and my family members and my friends who supported me to help me build myself back up. And what I realized is, my mom is not here on this earth. Her physical body is not here on this earth, but her presence and her legacy is living through me and through Rasha. So, yeah.
yeah. It's interesting because you had the feeling that you lost love, but I think you are love, and that's the beautiful gift that your mom left to you both is you are what exactly what she wants emanated in the world. And there's nothing more beautiful than that. If she was here today, and I've seen you post about her, and I see the love in her spirit and everything that you've shared, and that's exactly how she would feel.
Oh, Des,
You
she
know,
would love you.
I know.
Oh my gosh.
Ugh.
Oh, stop. I
so
haven't cried on any podcast except for Facing Evil, Des.
This is like an Oprah moment.
So I was looking at this episode because this is number 111,
Stop
for
it.
my show. There's beauty in the, and I
That's our
channel the
favorite
universe
number. I mean,
and
1111. Yeah.
out. And so I was looking at it because, of the meaning in it, and it's considered a sign of enlightenment, which I certainly hope that anyone listening has felt a little bit of that. And it represents self-love, abundance, luck, and it's your inner voice telling you to focus on your desires and not to give up. And so there's some serendipity there.
Yes.
It just so happened the universe called us together, and all the stars aligned with your crazy schedules and everything that's going on. That we could put something together out there that is gonna bring some abundance and enlightenment to somebody in the world today that decides to listen to this episode. So I have to ask before we go, where can people find you? Because now they're like, okay, well, we want to keep up. Well, what's going on? How do we know what's next and what's going on with Facing Evil and all this stuff? So where do they go to do that? How do they follow you? How do they find you?
First of all, Des, mahalo nui loa. Thank you so much for having us here. And yes, it was destiny. We were supposed to be here in this moment on this day. And whoever is listening, you're supposed to be listening to this right now, too. I'm a firm believer. Yvette and I are. Our mom was. I can tell that you are. Yes. So all the things, yes. But I am the social media queen. So you can find me on all the things, just at Rasha Pecoraro. And we do have at Facing Evil Pod. We don't run that. Our beautiful team at iHeart and Tenderfoot TV and our PR team run it. But that you can connect with us there. And of course, Facing Evil drops every Thursday on every single streaming podcast app you can think of. But number one choice, of course, is iHeart or Apple Podcasts, please. But you can listen to it on all the things. You can stream I Am the Night, our Mom's Limited series on TNT. And Root of Evil, which is a limited series, is only 8 episodes, bingeable. Yvette and I hold your hands through it. And I'll let Yvette say the rest.
Yes, and I am only on Instagram under YW Blend.
She doesn't do the
my
twatter.
My local term. I don't do twatter. And I don't do Facebook anymore. So yes, YW Blend. But most importantly, every Thursday, we drop a new episode. Come along for the ride. And again, as we held your hand, like Rasha just said, for Root of Evil, like that's what we want to do. That's what we're doing in Facing Evil as well. And Des, you are just an enlightened being, and so much love for you. Like I have so much love for you. Like and the Island Girls together, it's just a vibe, right? It's just a vibe.
And we're gonna hug in person soon.
I know we are, and it's nice that we're all in the same part of the country.
Yes,
on the western part. Maybe we can have a little rendezvous in Hawaii where
please.
we all
I'm homesick.
have our heart. Right? That's with us all the time, no matter. And that's the beautiful thing about the culture is it doesn't matter where you are because it is with you. And I think if anybody's ever met somebody who's grown up from that spirit, they know exactly what that means because we carry it with us. It's in our essence, it's in our being. And so it's such a beautiful thing. So this is just the first of many moments that I believe that we'll have together. But I can't thank you enough. I know that there's, many phone calls and many messages that you get. And I'm just appreciative that you took time out of your busy schedule to share a little bit of hope and inspiration for people who right now, honestly, we are in a world that needs it now more than ever. So I have unlimited gratitude for you both. Thank you so much for coming on the show
And
today.
we do for you, Des. You're changing the world
Aloha.
every day with what you do.
Absolutely. Unbreakable. Born unbreakable.
Malama
I
pono
love it.
ahuiho.
Ahuiho. Imua, right?
Imua.
And Imua. Awesome, ladies. I feel so incredibly blessed and honored to have had Rasha Pecoraro and Yvette Gentile on the show. Once again, they are the co-hosts of the insanely popular podcast called Root of Evil, the true story of the Hodel family and the Black Dahlia, aka Elizabeth Short, who was murdered in Los Angeles back in 1947, and their great-grandfather, George Hodel, was a prime suspect. You've got to listen to the story to get the full details, and you will understand more of the context of everything that we talked about on the show today. George Hodel had a very disturbing life. He actually died in 1999 at the age of 91 in San Francisco, California. Very, very, very interesting. What I hope you took away from today's episode is to have hope and to have faith. There is darkness that comes into our lives, often unexpectedly, and it can leave a cloud, but there is sunshine through the darkness. Just like Rasha was saying, where there is darkness, there is light. Lean into that, believe that whatever you may be going through, whatever you have experienced, if there is something that is dark, that is evil, that is holding you back, make the decision today to change that. As Yvette was talking about, surround yourself with those supporters, the people who pour love into you, who see the beauty in you, so that you can release that negativity that you might be holding on to. You are not your past. You are not the bad things that have happened in your past or happened to you. Life is happening for you, and we have this opportunity while we're here living and breathing on this earth to give and be good and kind people in the world. Don't let a bad past hold you back. I really, truly hope in my heart of hearts that Rasha and Yvette inspired you today to move forward, or imua, as we would say in Hawaiian, to release that negativity, to embrace the future and everything that it has to offer, and choose to be a light. Choose to be a light in your own life and for all of the people that are around you that you have influence on. That is something I think we all underestimate, is the power of influence that we have. It doesn't matter whether it's one person or a million people. Just by the way that we show up in the world impacts the experiences of everybody we encounter. So we have the ability to do good and to make those encounters and experiences memorable, incredible moments. So choose that. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is definitely one of my favorite episodes because I am such a fan of true crime, but more importantly, just a fan of these two women as human beings in this world. If you haven't already, subscribe or follow the Born Unbreakable podcast. Tune in for inspirational every single week, twice a week. Wednesdays and Saturdays are when episodes come out. Drop a rating and review. On this episode or on the show overall, it does mean a lot. I do read all of the feedback. And if you have an idea or a topic that you want me to cover, reach out, des@bornunbreakable.com, or you can DM me on Instagram @bornunbreakable. Please remember that you are your only limit. So take action today. I will see you next time on the next episode.